Zoltán Várdi from Launch Code Hungary will talk about crash and burn. His topic is gods versus frauds. He will reveal how entrepreneurs who build industry-defining companies are almost the same as those who crush and burn. And his topic is gods versus frauds. What separates legendary founders from notorious ones? Zoltán, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So having just had some insights into local ecosystems in various countries, I'm going to invite you to zoom out a little bit and talk about a completely different ecosystem. And this is the ecosystem of globally known celebrity tech founders. It actually fascinates me how dominant certain individuals are in our news feeds, in our social media. They are either there because they've built these amazing companies and they're very well known and they're successes, or in some cases they're there because they've built something only to crash and burn. And it's interesting to see what is it that really defines these entrepreneurs and the impact that they have on our lives. So I know it's hard for us to believe in this day and age, but actually for generations entrepreneurs built companies in secret. Basically, they would create their technology, they'd throw it onto the market, and people would buy it. So, Michael Dell didn't sit around sharing his morning routine for peak power performance. He just sold Dell computers. And Bill Hewitt and David Packard didn't talk about their weekend trips and their families. They just sold Hewlett-Packard calculators and later printers. In the 1990s, all of this changed, right? With the internet, all of a sudden, the dot-com era brought technology close to people. And so certain pioneers like founders of Amazon and eBay and Yahoo, they started showing up on the front page of newspapers and news programs, and suddenly it wasn't just tech geeks and industry experts who knew who they were, but they were actually known by the average consumer. And so fast forward 20 years, what do you see? In this day and age, celebrity tech founders are as popular as world-class athletes or movie stars. Think about it. A couple of years ago when Mark Zuckerberg introduced the metaverse, it was on the front page of every newspaper for literally weeks. There are literally 169 million people that follow Elon Musk on Twitter, like starry-eyed fangirls. And there are entire TV series that are dedicated to the founding stories of well-known companies like Uber and Spotify and the like. And so what you have is this very interesting insight into these amazing successes, but also significant failures. And let me tell you something, there are plenty of both. People like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, they have created industry, cultural defining companies. They impact the way we communicate, how we buy, the car we drive. They are the gods of modern day entrepreneurship. There are also people like Adam Neumann of WeWork, or Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos, or Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX, who's been in the news quite a bit recently. They too built significant successes and were hailed as the next big thing, only to turn out to be complete frauds. Their immoral and their illegal behavior impacted literally hundreds and thousands of people. So you see these two different stories, and it makes you wonder, why did their paths diverge? How is it that two sets of founders built these incredible companies and headed in the same direction, only to end up with completely different outcomes? Now, the easy answer is, well, there are simply honest people and there are dishonest people. But actually, I think it's oversimplifying the situation. So I've done a bit of research and tried to figure out what the source of the difference is. And so what I want to talk to you about in this next 15 minutes or so is first explain what is it that makes these entrepreneurial gods and these founder frauds so similar? What are those characteristics they have? After all, you don't become this successful by accident. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences. And I've discovered three very distinct behaviors where these two sets of founders diverge. And finally, I want to share some very specific learnings for all of you founders out there and those who support founders about what are the key things to take away from this experience that you can apply to your own business in order to build a long-term sustainable company. And you'll find that there are often very small distinctions that make a big impact, so pay attention. So when you worked for Steve Jobs at Apple, it was only a matter of time until you were exposed to what was known as his reality distortion field, the RDF. People talked about this at the company. It was this sort of unique ability for Steve Jobs to make people believe they were capable of everything, of anything, right? It was a mix of charm and charisma and persistence, and it came to life in very unique ways. One story I once read is that during the development of the Apple Macintosh computer in the early 80s, Steve Jobs was unhappy with the amount of time it took for the company to start up, for the computer to start up, the so-called boot time. And he went to the engineers and said, I want to reduce the boot time of the Apple Macintosh by 10 seconds. And these poor engineers who'd been literally working for months, 20 hours a day, were absolutely exhausted. And they said, Steve, this is absolutely impossible. We cannot reduce the boot time of the Apple Macintosh. And he looked at them and he said, if a person's life depended on it, could you solve this problem? And he went to a whiteboard and he calculated that if you could save just 10 seconds for 5 million people, it was the equivalent of 100 lifetimes. So with that motivation, the engineer left, went back, and a few weeks later came back, and he told Steve that unfortunately he wasn't able to shave 10 seconds off the start time. He managed to save 28 seconds. This type of approach comes to life in Breakthrough Founders in 3 different ways. You know, founders who really build significant companies, they don't think in terms of incremental growth. They think in terms of leaps and bounds. So when Jeff Bezos decided he wanted to sell books on the internet back in 1995, he was selling a niche product to a niche audience. But when he named the company, he decided that he was building the world's biggest e-commerce site. And so he named it after the world's biggest body of water or river, the Amazon. Sometimes this type of vision that these entrepreneurs have can actually make completely rational people behave absolutely irrationally. Sam Bankman-Fried had a meeting with Sequoia Capital, one of the blue chip VCs of Silicon Valley, investors in Apple and Google and YouTube. And he was able to raise $214 million from them on the back of a 45-minute Zoom call. And during this call, he talked about how he was visioning a business that you could spend anything, like your crypto exchange where you could spend your next dollar on anything, whether it was buying crypto or buying a banana. What was bananas is while he was doing this pitch, he was actually playing League of Legends, a video game, in the background. Now, most professionals would think this was unbelievably disrespectful, but they loved it for him. They loved him a little bit less when 15 months later, they lost their entire investment. Founders always look to solve really significant, meaningful problems. They want to have a significant impact on the world. And so when Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook, he actually envisioned a business that would connect people and build communities around the world. He was just a 19-year-old kid in a dorm room at Harvard College at the time. Today, Facebook has 3 billion active users around the world. Elizabeth Holmes was also 19 years old when she launched Theranos. She wanted to revolutionize the healthcare industry. Her vision was to be able to help people prevent diseases by analyzing just a few drops of their blood. She was able to raise $900 million at a $9 billion valuation without even having a working product. As it turns out, the product never worked, and she's now serving a 12-year prison sentence as a result of the fraud that she committed. Finally, breakthrough founders are very conscious of creating a mythical brand. Elon Musk is worth $200 billion, yet he makes a point of emphasizing that he works 100 hours a week. When Tesla 3 was being built in the factory, it was behind schedule. He moved to the factory floor and lived and slept on the factory floor for 3 months to ensure that the production of the automobile would not be late. Nobody doubts his commitment to getting things done. Elizabeth Holmes had a slightly different approach. Hers was more superficial. She wore a black turtleneck every single day, and she deepened her voice to sound more authoritative. And she did this because she wanted everybody to think that she was the next coming of Steve Jobs. So you see these different tactics, these approaches, and this sort of focusing on thinking big and having an impact and building a brand. These are all common to all types of breakthrough founders. However, there are certain qualities that I've discovered that separate the gods from the frauds. Bill Gates in 1980, he set a vision for Microsoft that he would want to build a company that would put a computer on every desk in every home. 25 years later, by 2005, in the developed world, he had achieved his vision. He did this through a lot more substance than style. Bill Gates actually read every single line of code in Microsoft's first 3 years of development. He partnered with a professional manager, a guy named Steve Ballmer, to build the business, who would eventually succeed him as CEO. And he, despite being a billionaire, had a very modest, almost puritanical approach to spending money. In this way, he encapsulates the 3 qualities that I think differentiates the gods from the frauds. You see, gods understand the details of their business. Frauds consider details an annoying distraction. When Tesla was launching its Model S car, Elon Musk wanted to introduce some interesting technologies there, and so one of them was the retractable handle, and this was something that engineers thought was unnecessary. He stuck with it, and in fact, it became one of the iconic elements of the car. Sam Bankman-Fried, in contrast, actually ran his business in such a way that the person who took over the company after his arrest said it was literally the single most biggest complete failure of corporate controls he has ever experienced in his entire life. They literally could not account for $1.7 billion of transactions. They had transactions between customers, multi-million-dollar transactions that they approved with an emoji in an internal chat application. When Sam Bankman-Fried was having his testimony just last week in his trial, he said, "I wish I would have paid more attention to the details." Well, I'm sure he did, because he was found guilty on 7 counts of fraud and now faces a total combined 110 years in prison. Founders who are gods in this context, they understand that in order for them to build a successful business, they have to scale their team. They have to bring on professional help. Sergey Brin and Larry Page of Google, 4 years after the founding of their company, brought on a guy named Eric Schmidt, who was a very successful, accomplished tech executive. And Eric Schmidt took a company that had 150 employees in Silicon Valley and built it into the global colossus that Google is today. He introduced strategic planning, he introduced operating principles, all of the things that makes a company function well. By contrast, Adam Neumann of WeWork hired his wife to run the company, which of course on its surface doesn't matter, but she had 0 business experience. In fact, her management style was such that if she met an employee that she didn't like, she would fire them minutes later because they had bad energy. This outcome of this management style and this entire business model was that this company that had raised $20 billion was running out of cash and was taken away from the founders and given to professional managers. Unfortunately, it was too little too late, because this past Wednesday, WeWork actually filed for bankruptcy. And the company that at some stage was worth $47 billion was trading on the stock exchange at a capitalization of $121 million. And finally, and this is one that a lot of people find surprising, that gods spend their money and their company's money very carefully. And frauds spend money like drunken sailors, both on a personal and a professional level. Mark Zuckerberg is quite literally a billionaire. He dresses in a t-shirt and jeans, and that might be overdoing it, but he lives in a 5-bedroom house in San Francisco with his family. He drives an Acura worth $30,000 to his office at Facebook every day. And when he was approached to sell his company 2.5 years after its founding for $1 billion to Yahoo, he said he wasn't interested. He clearly did not do this for the money. Contrast this with Adam Neumann at WeWork. He raised $20 billion. He spent $90 million of that on lavish homes for himself with indoor waterfalls and guitar-shaped living rooms. When the company employees were being paid with stock options that were worthless and getting free beer, he bought a $60 million jet from company money at a time when the company was losing $200,000 per hour, 24 hours a day. I wouldn't want him managing my money, that's for sure. So you hear these stories of excess, of scale, of just shocking stuff, right? It can draw your attention away from the most important things. And so I want to highlight a couple of important lessons that you out there who are founding companies should keep in mind as a good way to build a long-term sustainable business. And these are things that I've shared with literally hundreds of founders in 26 countries who I've supported as their mentor, helping them to sell and market to enterprise customers using a system I created called the Launch Code. And the first lesson is, it's okay to have a big vision. It's fantastic to dream big, but ultimately you have to worry about the details. Thomas Edison said that vision without execution is hallucination. And that's what a lot of founders do. They hallucinate. So you can fake it till you make it, but at some stage you've got to have the substance behind it. And so focus on the details of your business, understand what drives your customer, and do more of that more often. Second, understand that you can hire friends and family and freelancers for a period of time for you to get by. But at some stage, if you really want to scale your business in a meaningful way, you have to hire professional managers to do that. It's a different set of skills. And so keep in mind that in order for you to build a long-term sustainable business, you have to put it in the hands of people who understand how to make organizations function and work. And finally, it might be a cool idea to drive a fancy sports car in a fancy color, and it might make you seem like an entrepreneur success story, but actually I think it shows that you've got your focus on the wrong things. You see, you have to spend your money and your investors' money wisely. Put it into things that drive value for the company and drive customer satisfaction, and not make you seem really good on an Instagram post. So, I hope that some of you out there have gotten some interesting insights into some of the lessons that differentiate entrepreneurial gods versus founder frauds, and that you can apply these to your own business. If you'd like a copy of my presentation, feel free to send an email to zoltan.vardy@me.com. Write gods in the subject line. I'll be happy to share it with you. Thank you very much.